So we've all heard this before.
Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do.
But today, we're going to talk about what exactly that is and why it's so important.
Hello and welcome. I am Jake, a full-time musician and music educator based in Portland, Oregon. I make about half my living recording, touring, and performing, and the other half teaching lessons in guitar, piano, voice, songwriting, and more. And that's why I'm here on YouTube, to share with people around the world my music, my experience, and the lessons that have helped me along the way.
So what we heard at the intro of today's video, that is a major scale. And what we're going to talk about is how you know those notes, what that means, a major scale, and then more importantly, how do you use those to make music? First, we'll start with that word major. So major is talking about something that sounds relatively nice, sweet, joyful, peaceful. So when we talk about major, we're talking about the sound, we're talking about the feeling, the emotion that we get from it. And we'll talk more about this later as we talk about chords and the emotional qualities. But major comes in contrast to minor. Minor tends to sound a little darker, a little more moody or sad or somber or mysterious. Now the second term we have here is scale. What is a scale? Well, I want you to think of a scale as just a group of notes. So typically we hear the scale played from bottom to top and back down again. But fundamentally, I just want you to think of the scale as a bunch of notes. So normally we'll have 7 notes. It could be more and it could be less as we learn different scales. But just to start with a major scale and a minor scale, you'll typically have 7 notes. And those notes we're going to put together in different combinations to make chords or melodies or different parts of the song. But fundamentally, a scale is just a group of notes. So we're talking today about the major scale because the major scale is the most commonly used scale in Western popular music. And it's really important to remember that we are talking about Western popular music. We are not talking about different musical styles around the globe, all of which use different scales, different types of scales. So we're talking about Western music, and a major scale is the most commonly used scale. And the concepts learned here can also be applied to the different scales that we're going to learn moving forward. So if I were to play a scale on the piano, and this is a major scale, chances are, unless you had perfect pitch, you wouldn't be able to tell me which scale that was unless you knew what note I started on. But just by ear, we can tell that it sounds like a major scale. Even if we don't know which one, we can still tell that those steps are all in place. So it's important to remember that it is the distance between the notes. It's the relationship of the notes that's important, not necessarily the notes themselves. So to illustrate this, I can play a C major scale. Now I know that a C major scale is all white keys, it's all natural notes. We'll talk about why that is in just a second. But it still has that major scale sound. And even if I go down a half step, now I'm just going to B while I'm playing a major scale. But now I've played a lot of black keys, a lot of sharps, 5 different sharps in this case, but it still has that major scale sound. So the question is, if scales can have totally different notes, how do we know what notes are in each scale? How do we know how to find them? And for that, we're going to need to learn whole steps and half steps. Simply put, a half step is the smallest distance that you can go from one note to the next. So from C to C sharp, E flat to E, E to F, or B to C. These are all half steps because they're right next to each other. There's no other note in between. Now a whole step is defined as being 2 half steps. So from C to D, from E flat to F, from E to F sharp or F sharp to G sharp. And we can use those whole steps and those half steps to make a major scale. So let's revisit that C major scale that I played earlier. We often learn the C major scale first on piano because it's composed of all natural notes, C, D, E, F, G, A, and B, which makes it easy to remember and easy to play. So we know that we're going to start on C and we're going to play all white keys. So as we go, note the steps in between each note. So I start on C, and then from C to D, we have a whole step. D to E is a whole step. E to F is a half step. Then F to G, G to A to B. These are all whole steps. And lastly, from B to C is a half step and returns us to our starting note. The really cool thing about this sequence of steps is that now we've unlocked the major scale formula. And if we apply that sequence of steps, if we apply that formula to any other note on the piano, we're going to get a major scale starting from that note. For example, earlier I had played a B major scale. So we can see that in a B major scale that I played earlier, I start on that B and I follow the same exact pattern. Whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. And I get a B major scale. So for all my guitar players out there, same. Concepts still apply. So a half step is just from one fret to the next fret. So if you just walk up frets, those are all half steps right here. A whole step is just 2 frets. All whole steps. So we can play a scale. Let me start on the A string. I could play an A major scale right here by following that same formula. Start on my root note, whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Those are the notes of the A major scale, and I can play them across one string, or I can play them across multiple strings. So side note, and this is really important, but this is fundamentally the idea of playing in a key. So, not to be confused with the keys of the piano, playing in a key tells us that we are using, for that song, the notes of that scale. So, if I had a song that was in the key of C, that would mean that my song is built, whether it's the melodies or the chords, are built on the notes of the C major scale. So it would tell me that for the most part, I'm using the notes of the C major scale. If I had a song that was in the key of B flat, that just means that I'm using the notes, whether it's to build my melodies or my chords or what have you, that I'm using the notes of the B flat major scale. It's really important for naming, and the reason that we have scales and we have keys with different numbers of sharps and flats. And this is because we need every letter, we need each letter represented in our scale. And we can't have doubles of anything. So we need every letter represented. We can't have any doubles. Here, here's D, for example. D, E, F sharp. I need something for F right here. Just follow the alphabet. D, E, F is going to be sharp rather than that being called G flat. G, A, B. I need something for C, D. So we're just following the alphabet. No doubles. follow the alphabet. All right, when I was younger, my piano teacher had me playing a lot of different scales, but I never really felt like I understood what it was all for or what we were trying to do or how they were gonna help. I knew how to play them and I got good at playing them, but I didn't really connect the dots to the bigger picture. So the question is, why? Why do we play scales? And there's two reasons. Number one, for just the technical training. They can be really valuable to just moving your hands and building that fluidity. I won't discredit that. They can be really useful, especially when you're starting out just building mechanics and that foundational kind of technical ability. But beyond that, what we're doing is we're uncovering the notes in a certain key. And then we're building the fluidity of playing them. So the first part of that is that we're uncovering the notes in a certain key. So when I play a D major scale, I'm showing my body and my hand and my brain, these are all of the notes that we're gonna play. So that if we were to play a song in the key of D, for example, whether it was chords or melodies, we know what notes we're gonna use for the most part. We know what notes we're gonna have access to. And so playing those trains our hand how to find those notes, trains our eyes how to identify those notes, trains our body how to feel where those notes are. And we get really comfortable in playing in different keys. So it's one thing to play the scale from bottom to top, but to really think about that group of notes. We've illuminated that group of notes. And as we go, we're gonna start to build chords out of that group of notes. We're gonna start to play melodies in that group of notes. We're gonna start to take that group of notes and start to rearrange them. And that's the important part, that scales are giving some technical, fundamental skills, but also they're starting to show us what notes we would use for a song. And we can start to think about those things a little more musically. So if this is the first video that you've seen from me, consider subscribing. I'm gonna be laying out all of the music theory basics in a really simple, easy to follow way. In my experience, and for a lot of the students that I've taught, YouTube can be kind of chaotic, so it's my goal to create a course that can lay these things out really simply, step by step, and we can follow along week by week, video by video, and put together the basic building blocks of music theory, which we will then take to the next video course on songwriting and how we take all these concepts and apply them in a creative way. So if you're interested, I hope that you'll follow along. I hope that you'll subscribe. If you've made it this far, first off, thank you. Secondly, drop me a like. It's greatly appreciated and helps this video reach more people. Also comment if you have any videos that you want to see me make in the future, whether it's on music theory or it's on songwriting. Let me know in the comments section. And again, thank you for following along, and thank you for making the world a more musical place. See you in the next one.